Hi, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Pro-Spectives, where I, Jess Provencher, the leader of Pro Homes, interview other awesome entrepreneurs, business leaders, and community leaders about their experience with leadership and all things. So I'm super, super excited to have one of my favorite leaders on the podcast right now, Amy Scott. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Jess. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I love to just dive right in. Tell us who you are, what you do, how you got there.
Oh, okay. You might need to remind me one of those. Okay, so my name is Amy Scott. I own Amy Scott Financial Coaching. So I'm a certified financial coach, and I do a couple of different things. Like in general, I help women to get their financial shit together. And I also help women to get out of debt for the last time. And what was the other question? Like how did I get there?
Yeah.
How did I get there? That's a longer question. I think that was the one I thought, ooh. Um, I will say that my background is actually in public health. So I did that for many years until I had two boys back to back. I was 35 years old. I had two kids under two, toddler and a newborn, and I was exhausted. Wanted to take some time off from my public health position at a nonprofit and felt like it was the first time my husband and I really dug into our finances and realized we did not make enough with him if it was just him working as a public high school teacher. And it really required us to look at our finances from a different perspective. And I share that because that started a love affair for me around like budgeting and financial education. And for a while, I just did it on my own and at my kitchen table with friends who figured out what I was doing. And then it became a career, and it's what I love to do.
I love it. I feel like I hear that story so frequently in these of leaders and entrepreneurs and business people who have a challenge in their own life. I try not to call it a problem, but some sort of obstacle in their own life that they're determined to overcome.
Yeah.
And that turns into a passion or a desire to share what they've learned with other people. And it sounds like kind of it was similar. It brought you into finances.
Yeah, 100%. And really, it was this aha of like, well, we were doing well enough. Like, we were doing okay. Like, we weren't drowning in debt. We were getting by. And then realizing that really what it was for me was like the decisions that we had made financially had limited some of our options. Probably looking ahead, I would have wanted to take some time off with my kiddos. At the time, I really was thinking 6 months, and that seemed out of reach. And so it's that experience of why didn't I think about this before? Like, why didn't I plan for this before? Why, it was a lot of beating myself up, to be honest. And a lot, and then, I only allow myself to hang in that for so long before I say, like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, I'm not going to have someone else decide how I do this whole new parent thing.
Mhm.
So that was the impetus.
Well, and I think many of us do that.
Yeah.
Many of us make decisions in the now without thinking about the repercussions of the decisions in the future,
Mm-hmm.
or how, to your point, how you put it, how you're limiting your options.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the point of money, right? The point of money is not money in and of itself. The point of money is the options. The point of money is if I want to work or if I don't want to work. And the
Mm-hmm.
point of money is do I just stay home or can I go on a vacation? Like it's to increase your options. It doesn't mean you might not choose to still stay home instead of going on vacation or whatever, but it gives you the choice.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, you will often hear me say to folks like, "Listen, I don't necessarily care about my clients making a ton of money, although of course I want that for them,
Right.
but I want them to have more options and really be able to have a plan for their money. Like I'm a systems person at the end of the day. So if you ask me what do I want to do day in and day out, I'm like, I'm just tricking people. Like really, I'm just getting them to follow my system, like I am a systems girl, but it's a system so that you can pivot, because the reality is life is coming at us, and a lot of things we can plan for, but there's that expression, how do you make God laugh? You make a plan. And I feel like, that's what I'm doing day in and day out, right? But it's having enough planned that we feel like we can pivot on our path along the way as life provides us different opportunities slash obstacles, challenges, etc. So
100%. And obviously, we've actually worked together on your system. So, I can see firsthand
mhm.
how it has allowed us to make better decisions. And a perfect example, you and I have been talking about cars and this and that, and two teenagers driving. And lo and behold, this morning, 6:30 in the morning, my kiddos get in a car accident,
Oh no.
and their car, thank God nobody's hurt, everybody's fine, but the car's not fine.
Mhm.
And literally 4 hours later, I get a phone call. My new car is in a month early. So it's like, now we
Yeah.
are looking at our budget. We're utilizing your system and we're saying, okay, how does this fit? How can we pivot? What
Mhm.
can we shift? Like, what really makes sense here? And I think, it's been a fascinating transformation, and then the work that you do is so helpful,
Mhm.
and really doesn't feel restrictive like many other budgeting systems feel. It really, so instead of, I think budgeting in general can feel restrictive, right? Like I'm not supposed, similar to dieting,
Yes,
like
100%.
good
Mhm.
food, bad food, good spending money, bad spending money. It just has like this nuance to it that can create, I think, more shame, restriction, kind of like these yucky feelings.
Yeah.
And your system is really all about options.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
let's be honest, the more options someone has, the less restrictive they feel, the more empowered they feel. And I know, we had tried working with another financial coach and it wasn't a good fit. It felt really punitive,
Mhm.
which is nothing that I get from working with you at all.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That is the most important thing to me, is that people, feel comfortable, and it's a free, safe space to share things. But I do think, budgeting gets a bad rap. I do think it is this idea of restriction. And actually, I think what I don't know how to say this exactly, but I think there's something that we're looking for around finance. So we're actually looking for guardrails. Some of what causes stress for us around our finances across the board is like, well, I'm overspending in this area. Like I'm sure I'm overspending and going out to eat or groceries or whatever. And I'll often like dive in a little bit with people and I'll be like, really? Are you? Like, well, how much did you say you were going to spend on groceries? Well, I don't know. It just feels like I'm overspending.
Mhm.
And so I point that out just because there's so much of that, like we don't necessarily have that guardrail. So everything can feel like overspending. Everything can feel like we're quote unquote out of control because we don't have those guardrails. We don't have a plan. We're winging it, right? We can't clearly see the impact of those decisions in the day to day and our long term goals. So it feels like, I don't know. I don't want to look back like a year, 5 years, 10 years, however long forward in the future and think, I wish I'd thought about this differently. I wish I'd planned differently. So in general, like setting up guardrails, I think about it. I'm sure I've used this analogy with you, like around like bowling, when you have those bumpers that, really this is for kids, but I still use them. But really, so you stay in this lane, you're on track for this financial goal to save for your kids' college, this financial goal to have this debt paid off by X point, for example, or this amount in savings. So I appreciate you saying that, because so many of my clients will say, I have more money than I thought I did.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, that's exactly right. And we've been focusing on saving and this and that. And we used to say, like, well, we deserve, we work so hard and I'm so tired and I want to go out to eat. And then we'd blame, oh, well, we can't go on a vacation or we don't have any savings or whatever. And now we have so much in savings, and it's like we've done it relatively quickly. And it's like, oh, all that money was there. And
Yeah.
yes, I probably am going out to eat less, but
Mm.
not because I'm telling myself go out to eat less. Like, it's not like it's not like I'm punishing myself. Like I said, it's more like, hey, you have all of this and you can do whatever you want with this.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I choose to go out to eat, and sometimes we choose something else,
Yeah.
but it feels like an option that I chose versus
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to go to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning because I shouldn't spend that $5, $10 or whatever.
Right. Right. Yeah. Similar to dieting again, I think there is a lot of
Mm-hmm.
shoulding, right, in the world of finances. I should have more saved. I should be able to pay off this paycheck, I should have more left from this commission, et cetera. And, it just never feels good. I tried to think of an example the other day where should would feel good, and it doesn't, because it's really saying, yeah, it makes us feel a little bit less than. So I like that abundance piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's huge. So talk to me a little bit about why you've decided to focus on women and finances.
Um, we could get we can get real political here, but I'll basically there were a few things happened in the political climate, which I don't know exactly when it was, but I was around choices around women's bodies and the federal government saying what we could and couldn't do. It's just it's a mountain of evidence, to be honest, about, I'm just going to lay it all out there, like men making a lot of decisions for women, for their brains, for their bodies, for their health. And it had gotten to the point where I just said, you know what, we're making these decisions are being made from a thought of, we can't trust women to make these decisions themselves. We need to decide that we need to protect them. We need to decide for them. We need to make it easier for them. I truly think that some of these guys think that's the perspective they're coming from. So what it was for me, Jess, and it wasn't an overnight decision to just shift to working with women, but what it came from was, I think underneath 10 years of financial coaching and advising before that was, I think a lot of my clients don't trust themselves with money. And I wanted to be part of the narrative that you can trust yourself with money. These laws are being made and there's only a certain number of things you can do. Of course, you can be active and vote and all the things, but here's an area where you can take by the reins and get help and get guidance and learn to trust yourself with financial decisions that you can control. And it was just a no-brainer for me. Like that's the fight. Like I it not to be a fight, but like that's my
Yeah, but
mission.
we
It's like,
can. And I mean, I don't think that that's unusual,
yeah.
right? I think,
Mhm.
I think, yes, specifically about finances,
Mhm.
but frequently humans, but maybe even in particular women, don't think they can trust themselves.
100%. Yes.
Don't think you can trust yourself about money. Don't think you can trust yourself to choose the right man. Don't think you can trust yourself to look the right way, wear the right clothes. Like there's just a lot of um, social pressure that we, I mean, even probably very young, very, very young, that girls look to like, okay, how am I supposed to behave?
Mhm.
How am I supposed to show up? As opposed to trusting yourself to know how you should show up.
Mhm.
And I think you're right. I mean, it's not been my experience and my personal relationship, but I think there are oftentimes men are in charge of the money and
Mhm.
women either don't know, and sometimes that's a function of, in the past women were the ones that primarily stayed home, so they weren't bringing in the money or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And though that was and has never been my experience, I still think that I didn't trust myself with money, not necessarily because I didn't see it, but because of the shoulds and
Right.
the like, well, I should be doing this, and since I'm not, I can't be trusted to make the right decision in the moment of how to spend my money or whatever. And um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's pretty powerful, and it is definitely something that's in your regular practice of teaching us to like handing over the decision, right? Which I mean, right now I have a senior in high school and a sophomore, so
Mhm.
we're doing a lot of that, transitioning to them making more independent decisions. And I can see that when you haven't had to, when
Mm.
when you haven't had to make a decision for yourself, it was kind of decided for you how how you can have a lack of trust in yourself to then to move forward in whatever area.
100%. And I think that can definitely play out, especially with, I do happen to work with a lot of women who are on the other side of or going through divorce, or quite frankly, who are coming to me and saying, can I get divorced financially? Like
Mm-hmm.
how would that look? So that's one piece of it. And maybe they've been dependent on somebody to manage their finances, but probably an even bigger percentage for me is a lot of women who don't share their finances with someone, but just from the decisions they've made those decisions wrong decisions. Well, I took on this credit card debt for this, and I did this, and I should have thought it through, and I didn't, and I bought this card, whatever. And they have a mounting evidence to support, like, maybe it's sometimes the trust piece, but also even a narrative I hear a lot is, well, I'm just not good with money. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not good with money. And I'm talking about the heads of educational departments, like whole public
Mm-hmm.
school districts heads of department. I'm talking about lawyers who are going in and, fighting in the courtroom. I'm talking about powerful real estate agents. I'm talking about, um, business owners in this one blanket area saying, well, I'm just not good with that. And then oftentimes they'll be, I didn't learn about that. I wasn't educated about that. I made these decisions, bad ones early on. And I figured, this is what I hear a lot, is I will just make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't know when people say like more money, more problems, but sometimes it can be that way, right? Where it's like, I always say, figure out how to manage the money you do have before you make more. But it has been a way, there's been a perception of if I make more, that's the only way I can handle this
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just not good with money. I'm good at making money. I'm just not good at managing it. So we all do the things we like think we're good at more of, right? I certainly do.
Well, and it's a more immediate solution, right?
Absolutely.
Like, well, if I make more money this month, this will magically be solved,
Right.
versus if I take the money I have now and redistribute it, it's maybe going to take 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, a year. But to your point, it's the same thing. Recently had a conversation with someone. It's like, if you don't know what to do with $100, you don't know what to do with 1,000. You don't know what to do with 10,000. You don't know what to do, or maybe you don't know what to do is the right answer. But it's the same with our time,
Yeah.
right? My kids say, you'd think that they have no time. They're so overscheduled. And it's like, if you have an extra hour in the morning, if you're sleeping that away, it's no different than not having it. Like, you're still getting up in a crisis. You're still,
Right.
doing whatever. So sometimes, oftentimes the solution is not more time, more money, more
Mhm.
whatever. It's learning to effectively plan or make decisions. And I think
Yeah.
I've experienced that too. Our first home we bought in 2006.
Mhm.
We maxed out our budget, blah blah blah, and then the market crashed. And I spent a good 10 years saying all of those things. I
Yeah.
should never have bought this house. I should never have da, da, da. I should never. I really beating myself up. And now, in retrospect, I can look back, but at the time, I struggled to and say we made the best decision at that time with the information that we had at that time. We did not know that a year and a half later,
Yes.
X was going to happen. And so, based on the information we had then in August of 2006,
Mhm.
that's what we did. The information we had then was max out your budget, you're going to gain equity, you're going to make more money.
Yeah.
That was effective. That's what we did. We didn't know what was going to happen next. So I think you've said this to me before, like, don't look back on a decision and make it a bad one.
Yeah.
Like, it's done, it's happened, you made that decision then. The only effective thing to do is make a decision, the new decision now,
Mhm.
based on the information you have now.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think in the world, I don't know, it's probably across the board. Like, because coaching, I feel like is becoming more popular in all different areas, whether it's life coaching, whether it's, personal fitness coaching, nutrition coaching, relationship coaching, like all the things, right? And I think it's, how do I want to say this? I think it's kind of that, like, quote unquote, like, know better, do better, right? Like at a certain point, you start to realize things that you could do better, or you even realize once you know coaching is available. Like, I had a woman who had a call with me and she came from the internet, so I didn't have a relation to her, but she said, oh, well, I was at work and they had a business coach come in and talk with a certain cohort about us about something they were doing with their business. And she sat there and she said, I was thinking my finances are really stressful. I wonder if financial coaching is a thing. And she went right on the internet. And, like, again, it was a blind spot for her. And then it was like, aha, that was something I didn't know I didn't. Now I know it exists. So it is, that to me becomes that any area of life. I mean, I'm talking to powerful, badass women across the board, right? So it's any area of life where you feel like you're struggling and you maybe just haven't, there's a blind spot there for you, or there's coaching, or there's guidance, or there's a perspective that you're looking, but you know enough to know, I don't have what I need to be successful here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that's the first area, because I do think as women, like, we don't raise our hands and ask for help a lot, right? We're the ones who people come to for us for help and to have it figured out. So to raise your hand and say, I'm kind of struggling here,
Mm-hmm.
is really the first step around, like, quote unquote, that know better,
Do
do
better.
better, because if you
Well,
didn't
and I think
struggling
that's
with it, why get help?
well, and when I think about that language, I have multiple things to say. One, I have come to really love and respect coaching, and I think it is super important. I've been coached in my business, financially. We got a parenting coach at one point. The thing I really love about coaching that I think is different than maybe more traditionally what we've heard, therapy or instruction or whatnot, is it's very well. First of all, I think of therapy as looking at the past and the present.
Yeah.
And I think of coaching as looking at the present and the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found, in having done both, that coaching is much more effective for me. Yes, I need to have some self-reflection. How did we get here? But that's done. And the question is, like, how to move forward. And I'd rather focus here and moving forward. And the thing I love about coaching is it's not directive. It's not like, hey, you should do this, like instruction is, this is the way to do it and you do it this. It's
Yeah.
all about up leveling you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not I'm struggling in this or I'm bad at this. It's this is an area I want to be better at. There's no comparison to anyone else. The only comparison is to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's not normal, high achieving, low achieving, that. It's okay, the individual who is being coached moving from A to Z, which if you think of traditional, I typically think of coaching as like an athletic, on a team.
Sure.
And that's the same thing, right? Those coaches are saying, how do I get this player, this team from here to here to just move forward to up level? So the neat thing about coaching is you have a variety of people starting points. You might have someone coming to you that has no money. You might have someone coming to you that has a shit ton of money. You might have someone coming to you with no debt. You might have someone coming to you with tons of debt. Like, it's just about incremental improvements for that person. And that's where I really appreciate coaching. And so to that point, it may not even be a blind spot. It's just a desire.
Yeah.
This is an area that I want to up level in. This is an area that I feel like I could do better in. And I think also it's when you're ready for that thing. It's like, I don't know that a year or two, 3-4 years ago, I would have been ready to up level in this area, right? Because maybe there were some supplemental areas, my business, personal development, whatever the things were that kind of needed to happen to lay the foundation for
Mhm.
me to be able to address my finances,
Yeah.
or our finances. So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Yep. It's like anything else in life. When you're ready, right? And thinking you're ready before it and pushing yourself, I think, can come from a place of should. Like I should be doing
Mm-hmm.
this, as opposed to like I'm ready for this. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the thing is that when you do something like that, it doesn't quite hit the same. The impact is different. And I say this because, I'm a big fan of books and podcasts and self-help and this and that. But I notice the books that I now am like, wow, that was the biggest impact. Frequently, the first time I picked them up, I was like, like, or
Right.
I just was like, but I think that's personal resistance, right? Like, oh, I'm not really ready for that, or whatever. And it typically isn't on the second, or this new book I'm really into. It's the
Mhm.
third time I've read it, and it's
Right.
never felt so impactful as it feels this
Mhm.
time,
Mhm. 100%.
So,
Yeah.
that's interesting to me. And you're either ready for the finance discussion, or you're not.
Mhm.
And I think that's something else that's beautiful about what you do is it's like, I think actually one of the questions I'll ask in just a few minutes is the best piece of advice you've ever got. And there is a piece of advice that, or I don't know if it was advice, but there was something you said to me once, and
Mhm.
it has shown up for me, not just in my finances, but
Mhm.
multiple times over the last couple months. And it is, the person you are today is not the person you will be 2 weeks from now when you actually have to make that decision.
Right.
And it has been so helpful for me to come back to
Mhm.
whenever I'm, perseverating or anxious about the future, or, well, how am I going to make that decision? It's like, who I am today is not who I will be when the time comes to make that decision. So that's why I can't come to a conclusion. Like, put it aside, wait for it to be in front of you,
Yeah.
then you'll be ready.
Yeah, and so I don't forget it, I'm going to say what the best piece of advice was for me because it ties to what you're saying, and it might be similar where I pulled that out from, but my coach had said to me at some point, it was really in a conversation, and she said something along the lines of, you can trust your future self to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about 18 months ago, and I've been in business for about 10 years. And I did not realize that I could have conversations literally with my future self. And that is a little bit what I've done in my journaling for the last 18 months or so. But really, when I think it's similar to what you're saying, Jess, so I hate to steal yours, but it is really that like, oh, that's okay. She's got that.
She's
Because,
got
right, like if I look back in all the times, how I used to be a financial advisor for 4 years, that was how similar to the woman I was talking about who I had a phone call with who found me on Google. I didn't know financial coaching was a thing, which is weird because I did coaching and self development for like 10 years. And then, like, I had my kids, stuff, whatever. And then I wanted to go into finance stuff when I realized what a passion I had around it. And I wanted to help with like budgeting and goal setting and debt payoff because that's, again, what we had experienced. And everyone that I asked around me said, oh, you should be a financial advisor. That's what they do. Now, I could have done deeper. I did not. And I spent 4 years in an industry that I learned a ton from. And I'm so glad I had that experience, but it was not what I was
what you
looking
want.
for.
Yes.
Right. But when I thought about then shifting to financial coaching 6+ years ago, I mean, I lost not hours, not days, weeks of sleep over that decision over a 6 month period of time. So I'll be, all the things. Let's just say it took a long time to make that decision. And now I'm like, whether it was even quote unquote the right decision or not, was like, I could trust that everything I was worried about, if I wrote a whole list, Jess, of like, and this and this and this, if I'd really had that perspective of like, oh, she's got that. She's gonna figure that out there. And I don't actually have to figure that out in this moment.
Exactly. And
Right?
it's funny. I know I keep coming back to my kids. They're so top of mind right now as I have a senior and just
Yeah.
having that conversation.
Yeah.
Everything we're talking about financing, like the choices you make now will limit or expand the options you have in the future.
Mm, mm-hmm.
With the information you have now, make the best right decision for yourself and trust your future self to cross that bridge when it comes to it. You don't need to decide today what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Let's be honest. Our
Yeah.
kids are probably going to live to 100. That
Yeah.
means by the time at 18, they're making the decision of what they're doing. They have another 80 years of life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the
Mm-hmm.
likelihood that you're going to choose correctly today
Yeah.
and that's never going to change, it's probably not realistic. So make the best right decision for yourself today, and when you have new information, when you find a new passion, when you find, then you shift gears and you make another best right decision.
Yeah. 100%. Yes. I'll be coming back to you when my freshman is a senior. Thank you for
Oh
that.
God, please don't. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, okay, rapid fire. Favorite place to vacation?
Ooh, well, we have a family like camp in Maine, and that is my favorite place to meet. My dad's family, I mean, been in the family over 80 years. So,
Oh,
yes.
I love that. The number one word you would use to describe yourself?
Enthusiastic.
I love it. I love it. And then we said your best piece of advice. So, lastly, how can people get in touch with you?
Get in touch with me is my website, which is just my full name, Amy Scott, and then coaching, amyscottcoaching.com.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so, so much for being here. And thank you so, so much for all you do for me and my family and my finances. And I'm very grateful you were here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.